at next attributes, line types and fill types. Line types, generally speaking, there's not a lot of need for additional line types in ArchiCAD. Occasionally we have needed additional symbol lines for site plans, but generally speaking, what's in here for the various dashed line types, for example, is going to be more than adequate. Basically what you have is the ability to set numbers of dashes up to 6 different dash lengths, and then the gaps in between those. Those are measured in inches. They can scale with paper space independent of the scale of the drawing or per paper space, or they can scale with model space, and that's the scale that the floor plan or current viewpoint is in when you open the line or the line editor. This would basically be like if this dash is 0.1 inches, it's going to scale up and down with the varied scale of the plan or drawing view that you're in. I would say 90% of our line types or more are just going to scale independently. That is, that when this is 0.1 inches, it's 0.1 inches no matter what the scale of the drawing is. Fill types, on the other hand, we use for a various number of reasons. It could be that we have something simple like this fill pattern, and we need to show that as a tile, for example, if it's a subway tile or something of that nature. You can go to the fill editor here, and if I find that roof shingles right here, for example, that's the fill that's being used. If I needed to adjust the scale of this, I can just go new and duplicate this, and let's call this 04 subway tile. And if it is, so the width right here is 6 inches, that would make it a 12-inch tile, but let's just say that this is an 8-inch wide, or sorry, 4-inch wide tile would make it an 8-inch tile, and the height, let's make that 2 inches. So now we have a 2x8 subway tile, simply by duplicating that existing vectorial fill. It's important to note the use with function here. The drafting fills, those are used with the drafting tool. That's why the toolbox icon over here matches that. Surface fills are the next one. Those are used with the cover fills of elements. That could be a surface fill on a slab or a roof in plan view, or it could be the elevation appearance of a fill attached to a surface. And then we have cut fills, and those are attached specifically to building materials. So those really not a lot of need to create additional cut fills, but the cut fill type here, if we needed a new symbol in our building materials, it would have to be defined as a cut fill. Additionally, there are solid fills, vectorial fills, like we looked at with this subway tile, and symbol fills. The solid fills are only screened fills. The foreground has a fixed opacity, that is the density of the foreground pen, and then the background is set per the fill application. These solid fills can be drafting fills, cover fills, or cut fills. And oftentimes our building materials for the framing, for example, are either 100% or foreground fill. So those are the fill types. Now if we need to create a new symbol fill, you'll see drafted in here I have this surface, for example, and that surface image is 2.5 feet tall, and I've drafted a series of lines to match that image. Ideally, this image would be a photoshopped image where it's going to self-tile, so when it's applied to my surfaces, it shows up in the surfaces correctly. But in this case, I know that my line work at the very least is going to match that surface when it's applied to the surface. So I've drafted that with lines. I can use lines or arcs. I cannot use polylines or splines. And once I have those drafted out, I simply copy them, Command C, and go into Options and Fills. And what I'm going to do here is create a new fill and make sure that it's established as a symbol fill. We're going to give that 04 for the CSI division and call this cobblestone wall. And then after that, I can paste this in. And you can see why it's important to create a pattern that's self-tiling so that it doesn't have these weird joints and things to it. It is going to paste in with the default size. Now you're going to scale it by proportion if it does need to scale up or down. The stroke pattern actually gives you basically it's like a kerning where they can either overlap or create gaps in between. And then because this is a surface fill, I want to make sure that I'm using it as a surface fill, not as a cut fill. You can create a little thumbnail here. That's this little image right here. Or if the on-screen view options are hiding fills, it's going to use this instead. In this case, I'm just going to create a little thumbnail like that. Just like with the line types, they can scale per model or independent per paper size. We're just going to keep that as the default settings, and we're going to say, okay, now that can be applied to a surface when we get around to creating new surfaces.